May 4th, 2000. The Pentagon. A wall of screens goes black, one after another, like dominoes falling in a dark room. Inside the United States Department of Defense, technicians are screaming into phones. The CIA has just cut its email system off from the outside world. In London, the British Parliament shuts down its entire network in the middle of a session. In Hong Kong, in Berlin, in Tokyo, in New York, the same 5 words are appearing in inboxes by the millions. I love you. It looks like a love letter. It is a bomb. The moment someone opens the attachment, the virus doesn't just infect one machine. It reads every single contact in that person's address book, and it sends itself again, and again, and again. Within hours, it isn't spreading like a rumor anymore. It's spreading like a wildfire with no wind to stop it. Ford Motor Company shuts down its email for the entire company. Merrill Lynch, one of the largest financial firms on earth, does the same. The Ministry of Defense in the United Kingdom is hit. So is the Vatican. So is the Danish Parliament. In a matter of hours, this single piece of code has torn through an estimated 45 million computers in over 20 countries. The damage isn't measured in inconvenience. It's measured in billions of dollars. Some estimates will later put the global cost at over $10 billion, making it, at the time, the most expensive computer virus outbreak the world has ever recorded. Governments that spend billions on defense budgets, on satellites, on submarines, cannot stop 5 words typed by one person. And here is the part that makes this story almost impossible to believe. The person behind all of this isn't a government hacker. He isn't part of an intelligence agency, or a criminal syndicate, or a foreign military unit built to wage cyber war. He is a 23-year-old college dropout living in a cramped apartment in Manila in the Philippines, who built this thing not to destroy the world, but because he couldn't afford to pay for internet access. To understand how a single unemployed student in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Manila brought the world's most powerful institutions to their knees, we have to go back. Back before the outbreak. Back before the headlines. Back to a childhood that had nothing to do with computers at all. Onel de Guzman was born in 1976 in Manila, into a life that had very little room for luxury. The Philippines in the late 70s and through the 80s was a country wrestling with poverty, political instability, and a government under the control of Ferdinand Marcos. For a family like Onel's, technology wasn't a hobby. It was a distant, expensive fantasy that belonged to people with money. But Onel was curious in a way that didn't fit his surroundings. While other kids were focused on getting by, he found himself drawn to machines and eventually to computers. At a time when owning one at all in the Philippines was a symbol of privilege most families could never reach. By the 1990s, personal computers were slowly making their way into Filipino households and computer schools. And Onel enrolled at AMA Computer College in Manila, a school known for training students in programming and computer science. It wasn't a prestigious international university. It was a practical, no-frills institution built for young Filipinos trying to find a path into a growing tech world that the rest of the country barely had access to. At AMA, Onel began developing an obsession that would define the rest of his life: passwords. Specifically, how easy it was to steal them. He became fascinated with a method of tricking people into revealing their login credentials for dial-up internet accounts, which in the Philippines at that time were incredibly expensive. Most Filipinos couldn't afford consistent internet access. Every minute online cost money, and for a poor student like Onel, that price tag might as well have been a locked door. So he built a solution, not a moral one, a functional one. In 1999, Onel submitted a thesis proposal to AMA Computer College for a program that could steal internet dial-up passwords through a disguised piece of software, essentially allowing users to get free internet access by hijacking other people's login credentials. His professors rejected it. They called it illegal and refused to allow him to pursue it as an academic project. This is the pivot point of the entire story. A young man, brilliant with code, boxed in by poverty, gets told no by the very institution meant to guide him, and instead of stopping, he keeps building. Quietly, on his own, without the school's approval and without anyone watching over his shoulder to stop him from taking it further. Because O'Neill didn't just want free internet anymore. He had discovered something far more powerful, the ability to make a program replicate itself, spreading from computer to computer, using something almost every person on Earth respected, trusted, and could not resist opening. A message that looked like it came from someone who loved them. Now we return to where this story began, May of the year 2000. Except now we understand who is standing behind the keyboard. The email was disguised as a simple text file attachment titled LOVE-LETTER-FOR-YOU.TXT.vbs. That final part, the .vbs, was the trap. It meant the file wasn't actually a text document at all. It was a script, a program written in Visual Basic, hidden behind a familiar-looking icon. Most people in the year 2000 had never been trained to notice file extensions. All they saw was a love letter sitting in their inbox from someone they knew. When the file was opened, the code executed instantly. It overwrote image files, music files, and documents across the infected machine. It stole passwords stored in Internet Explorer. And most devastatingly, it accessed the victim's email address book and forwarded itself automatically to every single contact inside it, disguised as a personal message from someone the recipient trusted completely. This is what made it spread faster than almost anything before it. It wasn't hackers targeting strangers. It was friends unknowingly infecting friends, coworkers infecting coworkers, family members infecting family members. The virus weaponized trust itself. Within 24 hours, it had reached the United States, Europe, and Asia. Corporations were forced to shut down entire email networks just to slow the bleeding. Investigators, working around the clock, traced the origin of the outbreak back through the internet's infrastructure, following digital footprints across servers and networks until the trail led to one place, a small internet service provider based in Manila in the Philippines. Philippine authorities, working with the FBI, moved quickly. Within days, they identified two suspects connected to the release, Rayonel Ramones and a young computer science student named Onel de Guzman. But here is where the story takes its strangest turn. When investigators tried to prosecute Onel de Guzman for unleashing what was, at the time, the most damaging computer virus in history, they hit a wall that had nothing to do with evidence. The Philippines, in the year 2000, had no laws on the books that specifically criminalized the creation or distribution of computer viruses. There was no legal framework in place to charge him with the crime he had actually committed. Prosecutors tried anyway. They attempted to charge him under laws related to credit card fraud and theft, but the charges didn't hold, because those laws simply weren't built for a crime like this. In the end, due to the absence of applicable legislation, all charges against Onel de Guzman were dropped. The very same week the Philippines was dropping the case, the estimated global financial damage from the ILOVEYOU virus was still climbing, eventually reaching an estimated $10 billion in cleanup costs, lost productivity, and destroyed data across the world. The world had just watched a college dropout, working out of a modest apartment, cripple government networks and Fortune 500 companies, and walk away without a single day in jail, not because he outsmarted the justice system, but because the justice system hadn't caught up to the world he was already living in. In the years that followed, the I Love You virus became a turning point. Countries around the world began drafting cybercrime legislation almost immediately in its aftermath, including the Philippines itself, which passed its own cybercrime laws specifically because of what Onel de Guzman had exposed. The event forced governments to recognize that a single individual with no funding, no army, and no state backing could inflict more damage than most conventional attacks in history. For nearly 2 decades, Onel de Guzman avoided the spotlight entirely, living quietly, working small jobs repairing phones in Manila, rarely speaking about what he had done. It wasn't until investigative journalists tracked him down years later that he finally confirmed, in his own words, that he was the one who had written the code, admitting that he never intended for it to spread beyond the Philippines and that the global outbreak was never part of his original plan. What began as a poor student's attempt to steal free internet access became one of the most consequential digital events in modern history. A story that started not with malice toward the world, but with a locked door, a rejected thesis, and a young Filipino mind that refused to stay boxed in. If you made it this far, you already know the next story's gonna be crazy. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll see you in the next one.